We're celebrating Christmas in July with lots of retro ideas. Keep watching.
I'm Brandy, and this is Making It My Own DIYs. Welcome! The first project is a retro candelabra. So on a recent thrifting trip, I found this vintage candelabra. It is very old, very worn, faded, but we're going to fix it. We're going to take some candy canes, whichever kind you like. I got a little vintage Santa. It's a little clippy. A little Merry Christmas cupcake pick, I do believe. This is an ornament from, I think, Family Dollar, Dollar General, something like that. And a couple of picks that came from Hobby Lobby. And these were 50% off. I did buy these. And then some tinsel that I got at the thrift store. A thicker tinsel may have worked better for this, just to let you know. It might have worked better. Now, even though this works, I don't trust that old wiring, so I'm just going to cut that off. This is strictly going to be for decoration. That's it. So it will no longer function as a light when you cut the cords out. I'm going to spray paint this piece with some gloss white and the light bulbs as well. And then I've got some little Christmas trees from Dollar Tree. And we're going to make these look thicker and snowier. So I've got the 3 different sizes in the bag. I'm going to take some of this Aleene's glue. I'm just using clear, but you could really use school glue. You could use Mod Podge, whatever you want. This is just really thick, and I think this is going to work well for the project. Using one of these Dollar Tree brushes, I'm just pouncing it in and out of all of these bristles, all the way down to the wire that's holding those bristles in. Pouncing it all over to get a good, even coverage of glue. And then I'm going to sprinkle it with the snow. Now you can use glitter, you can use white glitter, you can use colorful glitter, whatever you decide you want to use for this, but this is vintage inspired, so it's not going to look exactly like maybe some of the things you might see on Pinterest. I'm giving my own little spin to it. So see the difference? That really makes a difference. I'm going to do the same thing to all 3 of these, and right now they're on like a little wooden bottom, but those will come off, so I'm going to take those off before I use the project, because to me that makes it look a little more rustic, and that's not what I'm going for in this project. So you can sprinkle it on, do it over a pan, and that way you can pick it up and just use it over and over again until it's all gone. And that way you're not wasting anything, and then you can just empty it from a pan into a zipper bag or however you want to do that, and you can continue to use it. And if you're doing vintage projects, you'll probably want some type of snow or glitter to put on them. So now we're going to address Santa. Everything is going to be frosted, so Santa needs some frost too. I'm going to use that same glue. And then I am going to just kind of pounce it up and down in the furry part of this hat, on the top part, and on any parts of his body that would be frosty with snow. So like all of the high points, like his shoulders and the tops of his arms, the tops of his hat. And then I will put that snow down in there. And see, I haven't had to use the bag yet. We just use what's in there. You can tap off the excess, and then once it's dry, you can use a brush and brush that out of the other fabric if you want to. Clean his face off and such. So there, I'm putting some snow on his shoulder. I love this snow, and I wish I could find more of it because it's very, very fine. It's not chunky like some of the snow that you see. And it's extremely lightweight. I like it. But I got it at the thrift store, so I'm not real sure where it comes from. I'll have to look it up. Alright, so once Santa is done, I've decided Santa needs the ball on his hat. Now this might be not the traditional thing. Santa may not have had, back in the 50s, a ball on his hat, but I thought he needed it, so I just added a little pom-pom piece. And then I'll frost it as well. Now we're going to work on this little paper ornament. It's just paper, and then it has like a pipe cleaner that's silver around the edge. So really you could print something out, maybe of Pinterest. By the way, I have my Pinterest linked, and lots of free printables are in there. They are created by other creators and they're really, really good. So if you can't find an ornament, you can find something there that you might want to use. You can use glitter or snow, or you can just use it plain. But like I said, everything's frosty for this, so I want to keep it nice and frosty. I'm not putting snow in his mouth or on his face, just on the beard, the hair, the mustache. And I love this little vintage Santa face. It's so cute and whimsical. And it looks a lot like the little pic that I put all the snow on. I think his face is very similar to it. Before it's dry, you can just go around the edges with your finger to clean it up. This is how it looks once it's all painted white, but you can paint it any color you like. Then I'm going to take some Mod Podge and put it over each of those bulbs. Now at this point, if you have different colored bulbs and you want to put those in there, you certainly can. You can paint those different colors. I wanted to use some of this really chunky silver glitter on it. I just don't normally play with glitter. It's not normally my thing, but this year trying this retro stuff for you guys because it was very recommended and requested, I thought it was the perfect time to get a little experience with the glitter. So probably went overboard, but you know, it's once a year, right? It's once a year. And by the way, I would love to hear in the comments if y'all like these that I've come up with, because if you don't, then I won't bother doing anymore. This is new for me. I don't normally do this style, but if you do like it, let me know and I'll continue and I'll make some more. Okay, so I took this Dollar Tree piece of work down there, little box art, painted it white with my chalk paint, and I am going to be making a little riser or a support, I guess, for this candelabra here. So I'm using some of those building blocks from Dollar Tree to set down in the bottom. I'm putting it on the round part here under the candle and on the sides, and then it fits pretty well. I just kind of wiggle it back and forth until it's got glue from both sides. Then it's going to give you a nice flat surface. You can use E6000 and hot glue, or you can just use some Gorilla Hot Glue like I'm using. I'm just going to put the glue down here, and then I will set it down on the top. Now if you want yours to sit completely flat, go ahead and take off that little raised border that's there. This just happened to be exactly the size I needed, and I didn't want to bother taking that off. You're not really going to notice it anyway once we're done. I'm going to take some of that silver tinsel and I'm going to put that down. Be very careful because the tinsel is kind of, well, the one I'm using in particular, it's kind of a plasticky type situation. So if you use too much glue, it's just going to melt down and leave a flat spot like it did in the back when I started. So just be careful. Don't use a lot of glue. Use it only where you have to, and then maybe use it in spots where you know you're going to be putting additional decoration. That way it's not noticed and you get a nice fluffy tinsel. I think this would be pretty if you did this project in the pastels like turquoise and pink and baby blue. This would be really cute for this project too. Continuing around here, you can see that little square hole where my finger is. That is where the electrical wire came out. So don't worry about that hole though. You can either fill that in, or I'm going to show you how to disguise it in just a minute. I'm going to go around 2 times, but you can go around as many times as you would like. Just a little bit, just like a smear of glue. I mean, I'm really being sparing on this, and my glue gun is on cool. And so this is how it's going to look with just the bottom wrapped. The one thing I noticed about the style of the retro style, which I've always appreciated, just never done, is that it's almost like what you would call, I think you call it kitsch, something like that, where it's almost so tacky that you can't stand it, but it's cute at the same time. I don't know. It's like, I don't know. It just brings back so many, you know, memories for a lot of people of their childhood. And I think it's sweet. It's just whimsical and interesting and sparkly and attention grabbing. And so that's what I'm trying to do in this video. Might not be my cup of tea, but I would really love to know, honestly, what y'all think about this. All right, so I'm going to add this ornament. And it's, again, like I said, it's paper, so it's going to glue fine on here. Just use a little hot glue. And then I'm going to clip Santa over here on one of these candles. And now we can just play around and decorate it. You can use little miniature ornaments. You can use miniature trees. If you have some vintage Christmas decoration, that would be really good. So you can screw off the bottom and break it off. Trim down your piece if you need to trim it down, that little metal piece. And then it's going to sit down in that tinsel. And the glue will catch on that tinsel and help hold it in place. But I do hold it there for, you know, quite a few seconds to make sure that it is completely cool before I move my hands. That way it's nice and secure and strong and nothing's going to fall over. And then I'll put the smallest one right here. Then I'm going to take this little cupcake pick and I'm just going to cut this off. It comes off very easy with my wire cutters. I was surprised and happy that it didn't split. Now I'm just going under each letter so it has a little more curve like the rest of the letters. And then I'm going to add some of that glue right to the largest tree. I've decided rather than using the other candy canes that I want to use this kind of I don't know, I want to say felt. It's not felt, chenille, that's what it is, because it's the same thing that Santa has on him over there. I frosted the top like I did with the rest of the stuff, and then I'm going to add a little hot glue and put it down on the other candle. Now I think that balances a little bit better. So I only had one of these white picks, and that's because it's the only one I could find, but I knew this would look good for this. It's frosty, it's white, it's different, and I think it will fit nicely with this project. Alright, so you do know that you can cut your picks apart. If you want to, if you have one pick, but you want to have that look continually through your project, just pull it apart or cut it into pieces, and then you can spread it out. See, this is the bottom part that went over the part that's glued down. I'm just going to use my scissors and cut it because it is a plastic, soft plastic. I'm going to put a piece over here on this side for a little balance. Then over there in that little rectangle hole, I'm going to use a few pieces to fill it into. Just a little sprig of that vine above the candy cane. It already has glue on it. And this piece is going to fit right down in that hole. I know you can't see it, but just take my word for it. I stuffed it in that little square hole, added some hot glue, and then I'm going to trim down this pick. You see what I'm doing down there? I'm just cutting off the leaves so I have a little stem to put down in the hole while that glue is still wet. And then hold it in place for a second until it sets up. And because I love the dimension of these little, I don't know what these are, these little pom-pom looking plastic branch things, I'm going to add those here and there in the project. There's always so much going on in this vintage stuff, right? I hope that is a look that you can appreciate because we're going to go nuts on this next project, believe me. Alright, using some more Mod Podge, I'm going to go around the base of this now and sprinkle some snow on it so that everything looks like it's got a little layer of snow. And then also between each candle on the high points, there on the little center section, I'm going to add a little glue there too. And then you'll see me take my fingers and sprinkle that over the top of it. When I tell y'all my room is full of glitter, I mean it looks like a glitter bomb went off. With the projects that I have done recently, there is glitter everywhere. Everywhere. But I don't mind it. It's fun. I'll just grab the vacuum cleaner and then we'll just call it pixie dust when I walk out of the house with it on my face. Yeah, we'll just call it that. I'm so joyful that it's shining through my skin. But the look of it is really nice, right? So I have snow and glitter everywhere, but it's making me very... The next is a retro wreath, and I hope y'all like this one. This is a 12-inch wreath form. You can get one at Dollar Tree. This is just one I thrifted. We're going to lay it down with the curved side down. I've got some vintage ornaments here. 2 boxes. Some of that lovely tinsel. But if you have something thicker, use that on this wreath. It will be better. You'll see why. Then I have a pick here that is silver. I have some gray ribbon. It doesn't matter what kind you use, but because I am using silver. I wanted something that you couldn't see through it, so this sparkly ribbon will do the trick. I'm going to wrap it through the frame and then glue it to itself. Gluing it to itself instead of on the frame will keep it together nice and tight. You don't have to worry about anything popping off. Then I am just going to start wrapping this around. I'm going to wrap it around as sparingly as possible, but making sure that I overlap the pieces. You know, I like to save and I like to help you save money, so let's not waste anything we don't need to. Stretch it out as far as you can, but get full coverage. When you get back to the beginning, you can trim it off. Flip it over and then just glue that down on the back. This is going to make it so much easier. When you go to wrap your tinsel, you're going to have a better coverage. This is how it looks. Then, flipping it over, starting on the back, we're going to add a little bit of tinsel here. Making sure it's on cool. I had bumped it up. And then you're just going to start wrapping. And you're going to wrap row by row by row all the way around. You might want to work in small sections so that you're not twisted up. When you get back to the bottom or to the original starting place, wrap it over, just over, you know, kind of overlap it, and then trim it off. Give it just a second to dry. Then I have some of this that I took off of another project, probably something from Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to wrap this around, leaving some pretty big gaps in between. This is just adding some additional support and color that really in the end doesn't matter because you can barely see it. Alright, I'm going to start with the round ornaments, and I'm going to do a north, south, east, west pattern. I have to put the glue on there and then gently but firmly press it and hold it into place for a minute, because you're using cool glue and you do not want these ornaments to pop off. They are hand-blown glass and that would make a mess. So Gorilla Glue, folks, Gorilla Glue. I'm going to lay out my pattern with these tear-shaped snowflakes. I think that's what they're called. And I'm going to add some glue and then hold it in place just like I do the other ones so that nothing pops off. And because we have the curved edge on the table and the top part is the concave section, it kind of makes you feel like it's resting in a curve, which gives it a little more support. So I've trimmed off the stem here from this little pick, and I'm going to bend it and then push it through the inside of the wreath. I'm going to add some glue here and just make sure that it doesn't fall off. Then I'll take some of these ornaments, well, these lights. These are old lights that I got from Goodwill that probably don't work anymore, but they add color and they really do. If you're looking at this going, what in the world is she doing? This is the ugliest thing I've ever seen. Please go over to Pinterest and look at some of the wreaths. One thing I know about it is the more the merrier when it comes to these things. As much vintage stuff as I can find and poke in this wreath, I'm putting it in there. This is like a collage, like a Christmas collage, if you will. And I am just filling it up with all kinds of stuff. My husband loves this one. He loves it. And I know that somebody out there watching is also going to love this and find inspiration. If this is not something that you would necessarily do on your own, that is fine, but I hope it has brought you back some good memories. So I'm looking around just to make sure I have enough stuff, and you know what? I can do better. So I'm going to take some of this table scatter and I'm going to add it here and there, because to me, it follows the theme. We can add some stars and some more color. There's definitely some yellow in those ornaments or gold that we don't have, so those gold stars I think help kind of accentuate the colors. These are some picks that came in some of the vintage stuff that I found at Goodwill. And now, folks, I'm gonna have to go back to Goodwill and look for more vintage stuff, because I don't have any more left after doing these projects. This is fun though. This is definitely something. If the ornaments were plastic, this is something that you could probably do with your kids. Maybe do it anyway, but just use some supervision and share some stories with your grandkids or your kids about Christmas when you were a child. Share those good memories. Give them something pleasant and fun to remember. Let them see you as a child. Let them see that joy in you so they know that no matter how old you are, you're important and what you have to say is important. Okay, so we're going to take a pipe cleaner for the back. I'm just using one of these candy cane stripe pipe cleaners I've had for a while. I do not know where they came from. I'm sure you could probably get them at Dollar Tree, I'm sure. Or you can make your own with white and red, just twist them together. And I'm just going to twist a loop in the back, which is fed through the tinsel wire, so we have a way to hang it up. The third project is retro page frames, and there are 2 of these. I'm going to take some of these house frames that are from the Dollar Tree, and these beautiful vintage books. These are from 1952, according to the information inside the books. So they are going way back. Look how cute. Look, she's dancing. So cute. And because these books are in terrible shape, they can't be resold. I'm going to use these. I'm going to give them new life. I'm going to take these frames apart, take the backing off, the paper out, the inner frame, and the glass. Take those little pegs out, those little black holders, pull all those out. I'm going to use this as a sort of a template to make sure that whatever pictures I choose will actually fit in the frame. And I love this Santa, so I'm going to carefully cut him out. Again with that sweet face. And then over here, the 2 little ones looking at the Christmas tree. How precious. They are so cute. Look at those little pink cheeks. And now I'm just going to trace this out so we can use it, but we want to use red as a matte instead of the white. You could always paint or color on that white one if you want to. You can use printed paper, you can use plain paper. You can just leave the paper out if your picture is big enough, whichever way you want to do it. But I like the idea of it being Christmas in the home. If you're new to my channel, I want to say welcome to you. I appreciate you coming by and checking out what we've got going on. For the rest of you who have already subscribed, thanks for coming back by. I want to let you know as a reminder that November is going to be our viewer subscriber appreciation month. So the whole month we'll be doing giveaways on and off. You have to listen and watch the videos carefully for information about how you can be entered for a chance to win some goodness, some crafty goodness. I have tools, I have supplies, all kinds of good things that I think you're really going to like. So be sure that you are subscribed and you turn on your notification bell so you don't miss the opportunity to win some goodies. So you can see exactly what I'm doing here. Once I've got it to the right measurement, I'm going to flip it over and use just a little bit of plain tape and just tape this down. I don't want it to overlap and I don't want it to be seen through. Want everything to be secure though. You could always put your glass back in the frame if you want to use it with glass, but for recording purposes, I'm not going to put my glass in it. I don't want the reflection of the light in my camera and all that aggravation. Flip your pictures back inside, and then I pull the back off of here and it looks terrible, so we're just going to flip it over. Now we have a nice clean side. How about that? Going to do the same thing here. Carefully pull this off. It's just paper. You can save those stands to use on other projects if you need to. I save everything. Alright, and then taking some of that Gorilla Glue, I'm just going to put this all around the edges. And this is going to seal it into the frame without all of popsicle sticks and all of that business on the back. This is going to seal it down and you don't have to worry about it. If you leave it laying there, the glue will seep down where it should and it doesn't even come through on the other side. Same thing here all the way around until we get back up to the top. Once that glue is cooled, we're going to find a way to hang it. So either you hang it or you're going to use it as a stand, and I like the idea of using it as a stand. I got some garland here. I'm going to cut that 2 pieces off. These are snowflakes. I'm just cutting off the cord so you can't really see it. They'll look more like just a regular embellishment. And then I'll take 1 snowflake for each of the houses. And you can do this too, or you can decorate that little spot up top if you wanted to. You could do a tiny swag. You could put a pine cone, and however you want to do it here. But because this is supposed to be sort of retro theme, I don't want to do too much of the natural nature type stuff because you didn't really see that back then. So here they are, and I like them. I like them with the gold on there. I think they look nice. Using some building blocks. Now, these are bigger than the ones you get at Dollar Tree, but the ones from Dollar Tree will work. I'm going to put it in the back, push my thumbs against the edge of the block and the bottom of the frame to make sure it's the right level and it will stand up. And that one is working. Then I'm going to go over here and do it to the next one. Press it down, making sure it's even, and then I'll stand that one up. Not bad.
We're going to start off with this box that I already had around my house, so it was free for me. It's just a little wooden box. It's pretty shallow. I'm going to get those measurements here for you. It's more of a rectangle than a square. I'm going to take a bag of your choice, as long as it's going to fit in the box that you choose to use. And this one came from Dollar General, I believe. I've had it for a few years in my Christmas decoration and wrapping box. I'm going to cut out the front side of this. One side of this bag is sparkly and iridescent and the other side is plain, so we're going to use the sparkly side. Just going to put my box down there and make some marks where I'm going to be cutting. Be sure that you trim that up inside of those lines so that it will fit down in your box. But don't worry if it's a little bit larger than you want, because you can trim it down a little at a time until you get it the size that you want it. So I'm considering some trim here, and I'm going to give you some options. This piece of beaded garland or wire came from Dollar Tree. You could use this for a more farmhouse look. This is some jute cord that came from Dollar Tree. And this is some decorative ribbon or cording that came from the Christmas section of Dollar Tree. This, I think, gives it a nice vintage look. Now you're going to use a couple of dots of hot glue to put down your bag inside of the box if you want to use it again, or for something more permanent you could use a glue stick or some Mod Podge. Just pressing that down to make sure it stays in and that there are no lumps and bumps under there. I've got my handy dandy finger protectors on, and I'm going to run a bead of hot glue down the side there. I like my seams to be in the corners, but you can put yours wherever you like. And I'm going to layer this with jute on the bottom, and then I'm going to use some of that sparkly cord on the top because I like the kind of a frosty or icicle look that it's going to give this piece. Reminds me of some old-fashioned Christmas decorations with the tinsel and the garland. So just continue along. You want to focus your glue line right in the corner. so that you can snug that piece of jute right into the corner, because we're going to put another piece on top. This cord is thicker than the jute, and it's going to sit sort of on top of that. So we're going to use the same process. I'm going to start on the bottom, but this time in the other corner so it doesn't get too bulky. I'm going to run some glue down there. And press it against the box and the other piece of cord. You know, if you wanted to, you could probably use like a decorative box top and make a piece of decor out of that. This is just what I had, and it's really thin. It's very, very lightweight box. And this way I get two uses out of it, because I can use the top of the box for another sign later on. Just to give it a little extra sparkle, I've decided to run this along the inside border too. Gives it a finished look. I've done this before with jute, but I'm going to do it with this decorative cord this time. You can just take your little spatula or stick, whatever you have, and just press it into the side and into the corners. Try to get that glue as close as you can to the corner so you don't make a mess. It's just going to give you a nice, clean look. Dollar Tree also has some that I think it's like a red and green and gold cord. I have some of that too, but it didn't match with this particular piece. Once you get it close to the corner, go ahead and trim it. You don't have to trim it completely short. You just go back in there and fix whatever's left that needs to be removed. And glue that down, just like that. This little spatula came from a set that I got at Hobby Lobby this fall. And I have some jingle bells that were already in my stash from a few years. They were actually not in my crafting supplies, they were with my Christmas decor. I'm going to use a piece of this jute and just push it through the ends and put 3 bells together. If your jute is coming unwound, you can use a little candle wax on it or a little bit of hot glue to dab on the end and twist it to make it into a little point so that you can thread it. You could also use a piece of clear tape. I'm going to tie a couple of knots in there to secure it. And now I'm going to work on a stand. Now this is square and it would stand by itself, but it's so lightweight that any type of wind or vibrations will probably knock it over. And I have a house that is raised, it's not on concrete, so walking around on the floor can knock this over. So I've decided to take these little wood blocks that came from the crafter section in Dollar Tree and make a little stand for the box. It gives it a little extra support so it's not easily knocked over. You could probably use those little Jenga type building blocks if you wanted. Okay, so since I've already got the stand on here, I went ahead and propped this up on a roll of ribbon just to give it a little support while I work. A couple of more knots to give it more surface there, and I went ahead and trimmed that off. Now I'm going to make some bows to go in the corner, because you will see these cute little bows on a lot of the old Christmas decorations. And I wanted to give it some more sparkle. So just a real easy bow that I made there. And I'm trying to get an idea of where I might want to place my jingle bells. So here are a few options for you. You could also take some of those little bottle brush trees if you wanted to, like in white, and put those there on the base. That would be super cute with this, I think. So one more bow, and I'm going to use the jute for this. I'm going to put it underneath and then pull those ears out so that they're the same size. And I like the look of that layered bow. Little glue in the corner is going to hold that down. Just hold it for a moment until it's stable. Then I'm going to put my bells in the corner. So we'll put the hot glue on there and just press it up into the corner and hold it for just a minute. And I have my cute little jingle bell sign. You can top this off with some of these metal signs from Dollar Tree. They come in these 3 packs. I think it's peace, joy, and something else. So that just will give you an idea of how something like that would look. But I think I'm going to leave it like this. I like that it's a little on the simpler side, and it's somewhere between maybe a vintage look and a farmhouse look. Also maybe a little rustic and possibly glam since it's sparkly. I think it would work in a lot of different types of decor. What do you think? First project is a collectible deer box. Taking one of these little gift boxes from Dollar Tree. You can get these in a variety of sizes, but mine is about looks like a 4.5 by 4, something to that effect.
I'm using some verbiage from a mini pack of paper, and then this pretty piece of paper that came in a big paper pack. This is a Walmart ornament that I actually paid full price for this year. Can you believe it? I had to have it. Couldn't find vintage, but I think this one is vintage enough looking. I'm going to use bottle brush trees and a variety of ribbons. These are pretty old. The one on the bottom is pretty old. This is not so much. And then this one and this other one are kind of newer. This is just going to give us a variety of textures and colors. And then I've got some red jute. You can use things like border stickers if you would like. You can really get creative with this project to make it your own. So we'll start off by taking this little overlay off of the box. We're not going to need it, so I'm just going to clean it up. I'll tear off that paper and then pull off those little foam stickers. I'm measuring out my paper here so that I can use it to wrap around the box, and I'm writing on the back side. Then I'll draw a line right down here. Most people know how to do this, but if you want to know how to make a nice straight line, this is how you do it. And then you can just cut that out. Now the paper's not quite big enough to go all the way around, so I'm going to have to patch it. So what I'm going to do now is put these pieces side by side, and I'm going to mark on Santa's beard. And then I'm going to cut out about a, I think it's probably 2-inch, like a little 2-inch patch here. 2x4. And I am going to just use a little hot glue to put this down. No need to really do Mod Podge or glue. That you can do it that way, but it's going to take longer. So if you want to do it a little bit quicker, because it's pretty involved, the hot glue is going to work fine. You could use double stick tape, whatever you want to use, depending on how permanent you want this to be. So I'll start off by putting the patch down, and then I can wrap that bigger piece all the way around. And then of course the area that has the patch is going to be the back of the box. You can line up your patterns if that's something that interests you. Not a big concern for me today. And then I'm just going to roll it around here and then glue the other side. You can use any type of scrapbook paper you like, and you could also definitely use like a gift bag. If you could find a nice retro print on a gift bag, that would work too. Now, are these projects exactly replicas of vintage? No, but they're my interpretation of it, and I think that it'll work. I mean, you get the idea. And based on the feedback that I've been getting from the comment section, most people do like the projects that I've done, so I have decided to follow your advice and your kindness and to keep trying to do some more retro for you guys. So this is my interpretation. Now the same technique that we used for the bottom part of the box, we're going to use for the lid of the box. Going to make a little patch to go there, measure it out, make a strip, and then cover it. Now for the top of the box, I have some fluffy white yarn, which I wanted to use because I think it's going to give it a nice base. You can either paint your lid white, you can use some of that faux snow, those sheets that you can get from Dollar Tree. You could use something like that. You can use an old white washcloth, you can use a piece of white fabric, any way that you want to do this. I want this to look like a bed of snow, so this is why I chose to use this. You can see that it kind of frays and it's sticking to my finger protector there. Just going to add glue and I'll wrap it like a cinnamon roll. Just keep going around and around all the way to the end. And if you don't get the perfect round in the middle, just fill in the blanks. You know, fill in the little spots if you have any little missing spots. I ended up with a lot more on one side of the box than the other, but I patched it in. I'm going to take that screw out of my ornament because it's not going to be an ornament anymore. I'm going to add some hot glue once I know where I want him to sit on there, and then I'm going to place him down. I'm pressing it down, not too hard, but enough that it's going to go through all the way down to the box top. That's why I've used a lot of glue here. I do not want anything falling off. This feels like it's a plastic. It doesn't feel like it's breakable, so that's good. Then I'm going to take the trees. I don't need stems on there, so those can be cut off, and then any little frayed pieces can be cut off so that this sits right down in the snow. I like two here. You can use one. You can use white trees. You can use trees with a different shape, whatever you are going for. But I did notice with the vintage that you see a lot of bottle brush trees, so that's kind of what I'm going with here. You know, it's going to have a little bit of a rustic flair to it, I think. Now I had a little package of mini ornaments that I got from Goodwill. You can see them laying on the table there, and I picked 2 stars out to put on the top of the trees. One is silver and one is gold, but I'm going to make them both the same shortly. I'm going to use some of this beautiful ribbon to go around the box to make sort of a banding. It's going to go right underneath the glue line, the yarn line, excuse me. I'm just going to press that down in there. And where it looks like it's fraying, that's just where it's kind of sewn together. So I can just patch that down by adding a little bit of glue and putting it right back in place. And I'm going to go all the way around the box with this. You can use decorative trim. You can use some sort of like a lace trim you could use here if you wanted this to look more Victorian. Whatever colors that you like, whatever scheme that you like, you can go ahead and do it that way. These vintage ribbons I got all on the same day. I have some blue, some pink, some lavender. They're stunning, and I cannot wait to use them when we do our Victorian crafts together. So back around to the beginning, I've glued it down, make it look nice and neat. You don't want anything hanging out, so I'm pulling off my little extra glue pieces. And this is how it looks so far. Then I can choose one of these little squares here as like a sign to go on the box. So I'm going to use the one that says Merry Christmas. I've just cut it out. I'm using a piece of foam board, getting an idea of how much I'm going to need so that it has a little more dimension. And then I'll just use my glue stick as a base and put it all over this foam board. And then put that piece of paper right down on top. And it looks like a sign. I like it. You can kind of crease that and then make a little bend in it if you want to, so that it'll lay flatter on your box. I'm going to use this piece to cut into sections to make a square, almost a frame around our box. So now that I know how much I'm gonna need, I'll just start cutting off those sections. And you see me here counting how many loops I have, so I'm sure to get this fitting perfectly on there. So I'll do one on each side. I know it's not easy to see, and I do apologize for that. I was getting carried away. And then I'll put one across the top and one across the bottom. Now to use this beautiful gold cord. I've had this forever and I have never used it in one project. So now we're going to use it. I'm going to use this to go right around the bottom. I'll start in the back over that little gap piece that we had, and then just begin to lay a bead of glue little at a time and press that down. I'll put my thumb under the bottom of the box to make sure that this piece of cord does not go under the box, because I want it to sit nice and flat. So that's what I'm doing there, making sure my edge is nice and flat. And we'll do this all the way around. If you don't have this type of cording, and I'm telling you, Dollar Tree has come out with some of the most amazing things in their crafter square. You can probably find this any day walking into Dollar Tree. Maybe not the same color. I know that I've seen white before. You just kind of have to work with what you can find. You could use an old shoelace if you wanted to, if you had something that was the right color. I don't know, that's thinking outside the box, huh? Okay, now turning the box upside down, I'm going to flip that ribbon over so that it's going in the opposite direction of the lid. And I'm sitting it right next to the cording. Doesn't that look pretty with that Santa paper? That's a really pretty paper. And I know that you can get something similar at Hobby Lobby. I've seen people use that paper before, but this actually came in a paper pad that a friend gave me. She gave me lots of paper, and this was in there, and I was tickled to death to get it, because that is a beautiful, beautiful Santa photo. Okay, so you can kind of get the idea. This is how the little box is going to look so far. This would be such a cute little keepsake box, I think. Maybe you could put a special ornament in here. You could put a gift in it for somebody who really likes the vintage look, and they could use it every year to decorate. You could even fill it with candy. So now I'm going to try to center this down. I put the lid on so I'd make sure that the lid won't overlap onto the sign. Taking this gold paint, I'm going to go right over the top of that silver star, because the main tones are going to be, it's going to be gold. But you can mix your silver and gold together, certainly. For the table scatter that we're going to use as ornaments, it would have been really nice if I would have had red and green. That would have been so pretty in the tree, but I didn't have those, so I'm just going with what I have. You could use something like buttons in your tree. You could use mini pom-poms in the tree. You could use garland strands that have the little beads. You could do that if you want to. You could just decorate this any way that you would decorate maybe a regular vintage Christmas tree. But I thought this was good. I thought this one did the trick. I've just picked out some white and gold, and I've just added it here and there in those trees. Don't want to do too much there. And I think so far so good, right? Now I'm just going to take some of the bigger white ones to look a little bit like snowballs, and I'm going to add those here and there around the stump that the deer is sitting on, and I'm just going to, wherever it feels like it looks right. Going to add some more in there, and you really have to hold it down to make it stay. Now for using a spray Mod Podge, I like to use this with my snow to make things stick, but you've got to be in a well ventilated area. You've got to open a door, you use a little short burst, and then quickly get that snow out and start putting it down. You can use the iridescent snow that you can get at Dollar Tree, or whatever you have on hand. I thrifted this. I've used it in several projects, and I absolutely love it. I am going to try my best to find something under this brand to put in my Amazon store for y'all, in case you were looking for this fine, powdery looking snow rather than the flakes. So I'll see what I can find for you. Alright, so I got it over this box here, and I'm just going to continue to get it out of the box, add a little glue where I need it, and continue to add it onto the deer and onto the trees. So see, I've added some to his back. It's pretty. I really like this project. It's so sweet. What would you do with this box? Would you gift it or would you use it for decorations in your own home? The next project is the Claws campsite. This one gave me so much joy as well. So you remember this sign. I've taken it apart like I do with lots of crafts. We're going to use it again. Bottle brush trees from Dollar Tree and the little vintage Santa and Mrs. Claus. They need a little vacation getaway, right? So I got them an Airstream. Fab Lab is the name of this. I know you can get some Fab Lab on Amazon, but I cannot find the particular one. So wherever you can find one, I'm going to use a elephant gray paint to start off, and then I'll be using some silver on top. I'm going to use a flat brush just because I love a flat brush. Use whatever you want to use. Foam brushes seem to take in a lot of paint, but then you end up washing a lot of paint out of it. So I feel like these waste less paint. I'm going to go all over the entire thing and the bottom and everywhere except the door and the window frames and the wheels, of course. Once it's dried, it only requires one layer of paint. I do go back over those areas underneath where it's no paint. And I'm going to grab that beautiful silver and go right on top. I looked up Airstreams and vintage Airstreams, and a lot of them were like a silver color or a almost like mirror finish. You could just almost see yourself in them. You can also, they also did like blue and different colors, but I really like this look of the silver. So this is what we're going with for Santa and Miss Claus. I mean, I figure the rest of the year they're going with wild colors and all that. So if they're on vacation, they ought to have a little more peace, right? Yes. Now I'm taking this wrought iron paint and I'm going to put this on my wheels. I don't like the stark black look necessarily for this, so this dark gray will work. I'm going to use my saw, and since this is a birdhouse, I'm going to just cut down the size of that little perch to look more like a doorknob. And now I'm going to sand it because we want everything to be nice and finished and pretty. I'm using my diamond nail file that I get from Dollar Tree. Highly recommend this for filing these small things. It really sands them down nicely. And then once it's nice and finished looking, wipe off the dust. This is how it's going to look so far. Grabbing my white chalk paint, I'm going to go over the door and both window frames. It's a little bit out of focus, so forgive me for that, but I think you get the idea. This is November and it is Subscriber Appreciation Month for this channel. So listen very closely because I'm going to be giving you a magic word that you're going to need to comment in the comment section below. And I also want you to check out the rules and all that I will have linked for you in a pinned comment. Good luck! So if you want to paint this rather than putting something over the top, all you have to do is use some tape on the back and then use a little bit of spackling on the front. Make it nice and smooth by using a little makeup spatula or whatever you have to get the excess off. Let it dry and then you can paint it. But for me, I'm going to use this snow sheet. It doesn't have any sparkles in it. I'm going to fold it in half to make it nice and thick. I'm going to trim the bulk of it off so it's a little more easy to manage. And then I'll begin going around the edge with the glue. It is folded over, but I'm going to open it and then do the next layer. Get it all the way around, and then we'll be able to trim it off. This is like a batting, so it gives a little thickness, and it looks a little bit more like snow, I think. I mean, it's all make-believe, but I think it gives a good look. But you do whatever works for you and just use what you have. Okay, so once I've got that second layer down of glue, I'm just going to press it down and press it, kind of a little bit of tension, pulling it outward before I cut it off to make sure that there's plenty all the way to the edges. I don't want anything to show near my edges. If you want a high-end look, you really have to pay attention to details. And I know that you can do that. It takes a little more time, but it's definitely worth it. So once the circle is out there, I'm going to trim this out. I've added a little hot glue, fixed the little raveled piece there, and I know you can't see, again, I'm sorry, but there you go, there it is. And I'm going to kind of put that down right where the wood and that white fabric meet, and then press it down. Working in small sections, you can use your cool temperature setting on your glue gun and protect your fingers for this, because you're going to have to be touching this. I'm also going to see how I want to add this on my little camper here. Could always trim out the door. I think I want to trim out my windows. So I'm just going to trim it out, you know, add a little hot glue and tuck that right up against the frame. This also covers if you have any little bumps of paint or little spaces that you couldn't get into. This is going to cover that up. They'll disguise it and you'll never even know it. Going to go all the way around. I generally like to start on the bottom. That's just a personal thing. You can do it however you want. If you want to start yours at the top, you can do it that way. Whatever works best for you is going to be the perfect thing for you. So then I'll trim it off and do the same thing over here on this window. Now you can use any type of jute. You can use a ribbon here. If you don't want to do that, you can grab your puff paint. You can make some decorations. I didn't want this to cross over into a gingerbread look for this particular video though. Not everybody does gingerbread. I do have a gingerbread video though, so feel free to go check that one out when you're done with this one. Now the windows are all decked out. It looks like Mr. and Mrs. Claus have been decorating. And it looks a little bit like it's got ice or snow on it. I'm going to go around the window because instead of being a birdhouse and this being an opening, this is going to be their window. And the perch is now the doorknob. If there was any way to get on the inside, I could have done like a stained glass look, put like a little curtain in there. That would have been precious. And then trim off. There are just so many options in crafting, right? So many different ways you can decorate with colors and textures. So my little trees here, I'm just going to give a quick little wrap with the same cord. It sticks in there without needing any glue. It just grabs right down into those little needles. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And trim it off. Now I'm going to grab some of those bottle lights that I use all the time that I love. And fortunately enough, I found a big old pack of them when I was thrifting, so I've still got some to use. And then I use them from project to project, so I just kind of reuse them over and over again. All I'm doing here, I know it's difficult to see, all I'm doing is wrapping the lights around that silver cord. That's all I'm doing. And I'm going to wrap it around just enough. Probably, I think I do like a strip of about 7 or 8 inches, and I go back upon itself, go back and forth until I get it back in the middle. And then that way I know exactly how much room I have to wrap it around my trees to make sure I have enough. I'm going to add hot glue and then firmly hold this down into that fabric, because it can go through that fabric and onto the board underneath, and that's what you want. Because when I start adding snow to this project, I'm going to have to turn it upside down to tap off the excess. So you want to make sure everything is firmly glued into place. And you can tell by kind of wiggling the trees. If they're wiggling a lot from the base, then they're not all the way glued down onto the base that they're sitting on. They need to be all the way glued down. Now I'm just going to make this go right between the trees. And then they have like a little string lights behind their camper. But the base is firmly planted on there. And don't worry, we're going to disguise the little end down there. You can use Dollar Tree lights for this. Now to make a better base to glue this down, I need to make a little raised area so that it will actually touch without me gluing down the wheels. I want a wider piece so that this really doesn't fall. So I'm just using the handle from a foam brush to put up under there because I save that kind of stuff. You know how crafters are, we save it. I'm going to paint it gray, let it dry, and then we can start adding on the glue. I'm using Gorilla Glue for these projects so that nothing comes off. Going to add a little underneath the front little trailer section, the little trailer hitch. And then I'm going to press it down firmly the same way as I did the trees so that nothing falls off. I want to cover up those little wood bases, so I'm cutting circles and putting a little slice in there like a tree skirt. But it's only going to be with the white, and it's not going to be for decoration. It's going to kind of be to disguise those pieces to make it look like the trees are coming out of the snow. But you can use the little fluffy snow for this too if you wanted to make some little mounds and hills. I didn't have any of that with me, but that would have been ideal. That would have been really nice. But you get the gist here. I'm going to do the same thing with the other, and you can pull a little bit on that fabric. It does have a little give. Cut the little slit in it and then fit it right around the base of the tree and the little trunk there. And then I'll be pressing that down in place. And then adding a little bit of glue so that it doesn't come up from the bottom. And this is how that looks. Now I'm going to glue down just a little scrap of that fabric onto the top of this. Now if you have the little square box from Dollar Tree, you can do the same thing. You can cover it up, or if the box is small enough to go under whatever birdhouse or little piece that you use, you can slide it underneath. I do actually discover that at a later point that it will fit right under there. So now we're going to take Santa and Mrs. Claus and find a nice place for them to stand outside of their camper. That position looks pretty good, so we'll go with that. Their feet are nice and flat, which is perfect. Y'all, these are vintage, and they are made in Macau, something like that. Yeah, I looked them up. Then we're going to put Miss Claus over here on this side. And then I'm pressing firmly, just like with the rest of them, really press it down. I decided they needed some electricity in their camper, so I'm going to take my little tool here. Be super careful. You can use a drill, however you can get into this piece of wood. This is a very light crafting wood, very light. Is it called basswood, maybe? And then I'm going to just take another one of those string lights and just feed it right through here. Now when I first started doing it, it was trying to come out the window in the front, so I just poked it back in there. I'm holding my hand up there in the front to make sure that everything stays on the inside. You see, it's trying to come out the window. I'm just going to feed it all on the inside. These lights that are on the inside are a nice yellow color, and then the ones that are in the trees are a bright white color. So here is their house lit up, and their string lights and their trees back there. They're party lights. We don't know what kind of life they live when it's not December. We don't know, do we? Now I'm going to take some Mod Podge and just a old brush here, and I'm going to go across the top of the camper because it is still cold. They're not having a beach vacation. It is still cold outside, so I'm going to add a thick layer on the top and then just sort of dry brush it going down so that it looks like it's kind of, you know, how snow settles. I'm saying this like I'm so familiar with snow living in South Alabama. But when I see it on TV, it looks like the snow is really piled up on flat places and then it kind of tapers off. So that's kind of what I was going for here. My own artistic interpretation. And then I'm going to add to the top of their boots, to the top of their heads, top of their hands, their arms, any of those little areas. And then I'll begin to sprinkle on some more of that snow. We're going to put a lot on the top of that camper there. A lot on there. Then I'm just going to turn it over the same box and I'm just recycling. I'm going to tap that off. You see how well everything is glued? Like I'm really bumping it around there and nothing is coming off. Doesn't that make a huge difference though? Now I noticed that it's such a silly thing, but to me I just thought, you know what, I'm a short person and I always appreciate a step to get into things. So we're going to make a step to go in the front here so that the clauses don't have to jump into their house. I'm going to add some hot glue around a little building block that I just wrapped with some of that same snow. I'm going to brush some of that Mod Podge on it and then put a little bit of snow on the steps so that it blends in with the base, because we have it all around the bottom too. I sprayed it and got it all covered, and then I'm going to take a really fine brush and go on the windows, right around the tops of the doors, and on the top of those little pieces of cording that we put down, because that's where snow would settle, right? So we want it to look nice and frosty right there. I'm just using my fingertips to put that on. And then I've added little red bows to the windows. You can put anything you want on your windows. You could put a peppermint on there, just whatever you want. Now I'm taking 3 different size little pom-poms, and we're going to make a very, very simple snowman using just a little bit of glue. And I did press the bottom down so it would be flat. I'm going to add the medium size in the middle and the smallest one on top. And this is how his body is going to look. Then using just a drop of hot glue and some leftover little branch pieces that I cut off, I'm going to tuck those right into the center section to give him some little stick arms. And then we can spray him and frost him too. But he already has some little frost on his arms. But you can add more. Very simple, right? Now he needs a scarf. I'm going to use that same red string there, and I'm just going to make a very loose knot, just enough to make it look like he might be wearing a scarf. And then glue the little pieces down and trim it, and he's ready to go in the backyard. Now, that scarf is not too long anymore. I'm trying to decide where I want to put him. I think I'm going to put him right here. It's between the camper and the tree. I'm going to add some hot glue on that bottom section and just place it down. I'm just pressing on the bottom section so that it didn't fall apart. And this is how that will look. You can see a little frosty in the background. So the magic word, the key word today is going to be Santa. So I want you to comment Santa for your chance to win a prize this week. The prize this week is going to be a glue gun with some glue sticks. That's right, and I'm going to add some more goodies to the box. The first project is going to be some Santa boots. We're going to take one of these cloths from the automotive section at Dollar Tree, 2 of these little tinsel boots from Dollar Tree. I have some foam clay, and this is from Amazon, some black paint, and some matte Mod Podge, or gloss Mod Podge. I'm going to cut off my tags And then we are going to remove the embellishments off of these boots because they can be used again. And in fact, we will be using those in another project today. So just carefully take those off. And then this just winds around a plastic frame. So you just pick a section and start unwinding. But go ahead and save that because you can use that on other projects. And if you're doing vintage inspired DIYs, these little pieces of tinsel will really come in handy. We'll start at the toe of this boot and just take the red section off next. Now you see there on little hooks, look like little hooks around there. That's how it holds everything into place on this frame, which is in two pieces in the left and the right side of the boot. So we don't need these for what we're going to be doing. We want a smooth surface. I'm going to go around and cut off all of these little knobs from around both of the boots and both sides of the boots. They don't have to be completely slick, but you know, you want to get them down smaller for sure. Now we're going to put the frame back together. It does snap, but it will fall apart. So I'm going to add some Gorilla Glue in between the pieces of this plastic frame and then hold it together until it is drying. Protect your fingers here. We're going to do both boots the same way. We've got to go in the front now and work on this seam. So we'll go all the way down the front, just following that little crack, that little gap between there, filling it in with the glue, and then holding it until it is dry. You see it gets right in between those two layers. And here they are once they've cooled. I'm going to take some of this felt roll from Dollar Tree and cut it into strips. It's about a 2-inch strip, I guess you could say, and it's probably however long this roll is, and I'm going to cut it into 2 strips, one for each boot. Now if you've seen my Halloween DIYs, you know where I'm going with this. This is going to be like a structure or a base to add other things on though. So I'm just going to add some hot glue and then attach it to itself and then begin to wrap it all around here. This doesn't have to be pretty. You just want to ensure that you have all of the cracks covered up and that everything is a solid piece again. So we took all the tinsel off. You could see the frame. Now we're covering the frame in this felt. I am going to just kind of make sure everything is where it should be. There might be some little gaps in there. It's kind of hard sometimes to get around curves and things like that, but you know, you can make it work and add your hot glue in there where you need it to hold it together. Doesn't have to be beautiful, but it needs to be as smooth as possible for the next step that we do. I'm going to do the same thing with the other little boot. Cross the frame on the underneath side and then wrap it. This is going to help hold it in place while it is all covered. I knew when I saw these Santa boots, this had to be done. I just knew it. I loved doing the witch's boots, so I thought, you know, we're going to do this again. We're going to do this for Santa. You could also use this technique to make little boots for gnomes if you would like. All right, now we're going to take some of that air dry clay. It is a very stretchy and can be sticky, so just be careful. It does stick, you know, sticks to everything, really. If you try to roll it out on the table, it'll come apart. So I just try to mash it out in my hand and go around the whole boot. Just make like a sheet of it, and then it is stretchy, so it's not going to break. Not break easily anyway. And you need to be sure that you get all those little lumps out once you've got it completely covered and as smooth as you can get it. You can add a little water to your fingertips, and then you can just kind of pat and lightly rub over that surface to make it nice and smooth. I did notice that it ended up being a little bit smoother once it dried than it actually did when it was still wet. So I don't know if if it expands a little bit. I'm not sure what the process is for that. And then I'm just going to take some more little pieces and just add that here and there where I need thicker sections, where I've pulled it too far, or where it needs a little more coverage. It's very forgiving when it comes to that. right. If y'all are concerned about my 2 black fingernails down there, I am trying out some fingernail like adhesive or nail polish strips. So I'm just trying it out with my crafting. So that's what that is on my 2 fingers. All right, so once it is completely dry, because my understanding is if you paint it when it's wet, it can crack. So let it dry completely, and I just left it overnight. Then I'm going to add the jet black paint to Santa's boots. Now these are not, the boots do not appear to be your classic Santa boots that have that fat round toe that sticks up. If you want to do that on yours, you certainly can. Santa is actually going to have something a little bit closer to some Ugg boots on. Yeah, it's going to be a no heel, a very safe boot for Santa. We don't want him slipping around on anybody's roof and falling. So he's going to have nice, grippy, no heel boots. I'm just going to take that paint and just go over it all over, and it paints like a dream. This foam does. So I'm going to go all over, and then 1 coat was really probably all I needed, but after it dried in between, I went ahead and gave it 2 coats on each boot. You can find my videos on Mondays and Thursdays at 5 Central Standard Time. It's free. When the boots are dried, now we have to move on and find a sole for the boot. We need a bottom. So you can use like a thick cardstock, or you can use some type of a flexible foam, or you can use foam board and just paint the edges. I'm going to do it both ways to show you what you can do. So if you're using like a cardstock or a cardboard, something like that, just trace it out with a pencil. Now, because you formed this out of clay, the boots are not going to be exactly the same size unless you are just that good, and I am just not that good. So I am going to be honest about that, and you're just going to do each one. It's my understanding that no 2 feet are exactly alike anyway, even when they belong to the same person. So we're going to treat each boot separately, cut it out, and then this will be what the sole of your boot can be. We will call this a Santa moccasin if you use the flat version of this, which is the paper instead of the foam piece. And you're just going to keep trimming it down. You want it to be nice and rounded and neat if you're going to use it for the bottom, and then you would just glue it on there. We wrapped across the bottom, so we do have something to glue onto. Or you can take those pieces of paper you just used, or use the boot again, and then go over some foam or some, like I said, foam board, whatever you have. Just use your imagination. I thought this looked like a good sole for a boot. And then just cut it out. This actually is a pad that came with a heat press that I got, and the heat press did not function properly, and this was torn, so I saved it because, you know, crafters, we save everything, and I thought this would be perfect. So now I'm trimming it with the scissors, you know, just giving it a rounded look. We don't want it to have any little jerks and snags in there. I want it to look nice and, you know, like you would want your own shoes to look. We shouldn't expect any less of Santa. And then once you get your 2 little soles together, and you get them about the same size so that nothing sticks out too far, then you can use put them on the bottom of each boot to make sure you got the right boot, just kind of giving it a little dry fit like I do with everything else before I glue it. And I decided to try my sander on it to give it a really nice smooth edge, and would you believe this works? So I used my sanding block, and those sanding blocks come from Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to go all around this with my sanding block. Get it nice and smooth. So can you think of some other type of material you can use for the sole of Santa's boot without making the project more expensive? I really can't, since this was free, and it actually would have been garbage. Alright, so now I'm going to sit these on here so I can see exactly which sole fits which boot. There we go. Check it out, make sure it's the right one. Like this. And then just using some hot glue, I'm going to put this on the bottom, and you need to be careful because I did go over here. I got kind of messy. See how I got the glue off that? So I'm just going to use the back of my pen to kind of wipe that off before it dries. And then I'm going to sit this down like a puzzle piece right on top and then squish it down kind of gently, firmly but gently, because you know glue goes everywhere and it squishes out and makes a mess. But I'm going to show you how to fix that too. This was a troubleshooting kind of situation, but I did all the hard work so that you would not have to. On the bottom of the other one, we'll put that one together. And I don't think I mentioned it, but I did show it. Be sure when you're wrapping the boot that you wrap around the bottom section too, because that's going to give you a bigger surface to glue the sole down to the little boot. Oh, I think they're precious. I hope y'all like these. This was just so fun to do. Don't you just love miniature things? It's so cute. So then, I was going to use some yarn, but it was a big mess, so I'll spare you that because I don't recommend it. I'm going to use some black pipe cleaners or chenille stems, whichever way you want to call it. I'm going to wrap it around to see how much I need. Use my cutters here to cut it off. And then starting my seam in the back, I'm going to add some glue. Protect your fingers if you're using hot glue. But I'm just going to place it down. You got to kind of hold it because there's a wire in this, you know, and it'll pop up. As you can see, my spider webs there where I let go. And try to hold it down. Hold it in place for a moment so that that glue has time to cool a little bit and grip onto the surface. And now if you get some little spider webs, you can kind of rub those off, and there's another way that you can do it that I'll show you in just a minute to get that off. And there you go. Add a little bit of heat, but move that heat, put it on the lowest section and move it back and forth quickly. Don't hold it in one spot because it can melt your clay. It can, who knows what else it could do, but I didn't want to take any chances. But it does clean up the all that extra glue really nice for this. So here's our little boots. You can get your paint and go back over if you've scratched any spots, or you know, if you had some glue that stuck and made a mess. Now I want to give this the furry look that traditional Santa boots has. So I'm just going to go up about 2.5 inches, which is about a 1/2 inch bigger than the boot from the that top cuff part. I'm just going to use my silver paint pen because it's here and it marks easy on here. Put a couple of dots so I get a straight line with my ruler, and then I'm going to cut that out. Now I cut out the long piece of that so that I don't know, what is that, about 6 or 7 inches. You're going to cut that strip into halves, and then always start the seam in the back. That's what I recommend so that you don't see a mess in the front. And you're going to want to add to your frame, and just maybe right in that little space that is right between that section, the frame section, and the actual black part of the boot. My little leather boots are waterproof. They may be neoprene. We don't know. We don't know where Santa shops. But whatever, we're going to do the best we can for Santa. We want him to stay warm, so we're going to take this fur and add it on here. We're just going across the little ribs of this. And again, this is just one of those things where hot glue or cool temp glue is just, for me, better. It grips quickly and you don't have to hold everything and wait. And like I've said before, timing is important when you're a crafter. And I know that y'all understand that. If you're a crafter, you know, you're busy, you have family, you know, maybe you have kids, grandkids that you're raising, maybe you are caring for your adult parents, whatever the situation may be, maybe even a sick spouse. And you really have to be careful about your time. You know, maybe you work full time. If you do, you really got to try to get those crafting moments in when you can, right? So you can see what I've done here. Now I'm just cupping the seamed part down under and then pressing it down, kind of rolling it inward and down so that it sticks to not only the frame but itself. That's just going to keep it more secure. And that's how that one looks so far. And then we'll move on to the next boot and we will treat it exactly the same way. A little glue here, overlap your seam, wrap it around by adding some glue here and there. Not necessary to put it on the top because you will be folding that under, so no worries about that. And continue around. If you are just stopping by today and you don't already know this channel, this is a budget-friendly crafting channel where I try to bring you thrifted and Dollar Tree and inexpensive yet very nice looking DIYs for you to bring into your home and hopefully bring you some joy in the process. So I would love to have you stick around and subscribe if you would like to be part of that. Alright, so here are the boots. Are they not precious? Santa boots needs buckles, right? I almost forgot. So I'm using a big popsicle stick, and they're very thin. You can cut them with scissors. I'm just going to cut two little sort of square, more of a rectangle I guess, to fit on the boot. And I'm just going to use my little nail filer here to file down the sides. Be careful, they can crack. Then I'm going to use paint pens to draw on my buckle, and I'm going to start off with the black center. It's definitely not perfect. That is quite alright. It's handcrafted, so it's not going to be exactly perfect. Heck, a lot of the stuff you get from manufacturers isn't perfect either, and that's okay. If you like it, that's okay. So now that we have the centers done, I'm going to move on and use a gold marker. I know that you couldn't see that. I do have these markers linked in my Amazon store, and I'm an affiliate. If you would like to check out any of the products that I use, always check the Amazon store. It is linked in the description box. Now I'm going to go around the edges too to make this look nice. You can actually color the back if you would like, and the paint in these pens is thick enough that I could actually run that gold back over the black slightly if they weren't the same size, and I just kept comparing them to each other to make sure that they were, pretty much the same size. So now I'm just getting an idea of the buckle here. Look at my fingers, they're nice and gold. I got the Midas touch today. A little hot glue on the back and then place it on. And I did kind of eyeball it first to make sure that I knew where I wanted them before I glued them down. And that is what that looks like. You could actually put a strap on there if you wanted to, sometimes you see that belted strap that goes around a boot. You could do that if you wanted, but I thought this would be fine. We get the idea. Now this is how we're going to decorate these little boots. You can use them as a pair or you can use them individually. Let me show you really quickly what I put in here so that you can duplicate it. I have some thrifted picks and a little thrifted vintage candy cane. And I'm just going to stagger them back and forth. The white snowy piece in the back is a little more to the left. The pom-poms are a little more to the right. Then the icicles to the left and the candy cane to the right. And I'll do the same thing in both of them. So you can make two gifts with this, or you could use them as a set and put them on your table. The next project is going to be two candle rings. I'm going to start off with some of this that I got at the thrift store, but this is actually, I think, from Dollar Tree. No, Walmart. They're frosted picks. You can get snowy if that's what you want. But most of the time, you see stuff covered in glitter or like a fine snow, I think. As far as vintage or retro goes. So I was trying to kind of stick to that idea. This is some vintage ribbon that I have. It's two-sided, can y'all believe it? And then a two-pack of these little rings from Dollar Tree. So they're wreath rings, but we're going to use them for our candles. We're going to use a little bit of floral wire to hold them in place. And then we'll start wrapping this around. So I'm going to take these sections that are cut about the same size, and I'm going to attach the first one down to the middle rung of that wreath. Just going to continue to wrap that around there and protect your fingers. Use some pliers if you need to. And then I am going to pull that tightly. And then we're going to do like a step down. So I'm going down a couple of inches. Going to overlap it. Going to go down a few more inches. Overlap that. And then continue to add until you are completely full all the way around that wreath. You could use holly, which I wish I had holly because I think that would have been like the ideal thing to use. You can use holly if you want to try to stick to the vintage idea. That's what I saw a lot of in the decor. But the boxwood will work. But it's lightly frosted, so nothing too flocked or anything like that. It's just a little bit of like an iridescent snowy glitter on there. Alright, when you get back to the end of wrapping, you're going to just wrap it around that frame, wrap it to itself. Just like that. And then start kind of giving it a dry run with the berries and see if you like the placement, how many you like. Now for these berries they're kind of wrapped in twos, so I just decided to leave that alone and go with that. We're leaving it in twos and going around. I want to make sure I have enough to cover, but I don't want the berries to be overbearing. I want the greenery to be the bulk of what you notice when you look at this. Now that I know where I want them, I'm going to add my hot glue and then secure them down. So I'll just poke them back and forth until I get them how I like them. Using hot glue is really going to make a difference here. Just continue around until they're all glued down into place. You could use table scatter, like some red table scatter if you wanted to. You can use any other type of red berry that you like. And I know Dollar Tree has a variety of those, even on picks. So what about if you're working on your second one and you run out of your original greenery? Well, that's kind of what happened. So I'm going to show you what you can do. Go ahead and grab up some more scraps of greenery that you have and start putting those in there. What I try to do is add them in where they're evenly spaced so it looks intentional and it doesn't look like I ran out and just started poking stuff in there. And you can kind of weave the layers together and have some sticking out a little more and have some a little bit closer. Not only do you want to do the outside, but you want to add some to the inside. Not too much, because keep in mind, this is not a wreath. It's going to be a candle ring, so you still need to have the opening in the middle where you can sit your candle. I do recommend a flameless candle for this, so that nothing, possibly catches on fire or gets knocked over. You just don't ever know when you have pets in the house or children, or even adults make mistakes, You don't want to take a chance on anybody getting hurt. So you can just kind of watch what I'm doing here. Next, I'm going to start with this bow, and I've got this beautiful ribbon. I'm going to go with about 6 inches and then just loop it back on itself until you have 2 loops on the left, 2 loops on the right. And I know that you can't really see what I'm doing here, and I apologize, but I do have bow videos, so you have seen me do this bow before. Once I get it all loopy, I'm going to take 2 tiny snips in the center, and then I'm going to take a piece of this white cotton cord and go right around the middle. You can use whatever you have. You can use your jute if you want to, but the white matches the ribbon, so I thought it would blend in without, being noticed that much. So then I'm going to fluff those loops out, and putting notches in the bow helps this ribbon, which does not have wire in it, to stand out and to have a little body. And that's what you want. So that's what I'm doing here, and I'm pulling those, and pulling the tails kind of downward and pulling the loops out, and it does stand up really nice. Then you can just cut your little tiny little tails into little slants or dovetails, whichever way you prefer. And then using some hot glue, I am going to hold this down until it is dry, because it will try to pop off if you don't. So if you put a candle in the center, which is what this is intended for, this is how it's going to look. We'll go back to the other one, which was like the first one we did. I'm going to add that bow on there and then put a candle in the center. This is how those two are going to look. Be sure that you use a hurricane or something like that in a fake candle. Now we're going to go on to some Santa ornaments. These are so cute. They're very easy. So you're going to get some type of a wood ornament. You can get yours at Dollar Tree if you would like. And I've got some vintage Santa paper here, and he's in 2 different poses on the paper. I'm using some of this antique parchment and my chippy brush and either a Mod Podge or a glue stick. I'm going to start by just kind of block cutting this out. I'm trying to be sure to not damage the rest of the paper, and I'm just cutting out the 2 different poses. I'm going to take this paint and kind of dry brush it. Start off sort of light and then build it up. You can paint this solid, you could leave it brown, whatever floats your boat. I do know though that I chose this color because it's very similar to the background of that paper, so that if I don't cut it close enough in some spots, you'll still be able to, it'll be blended, in other words. You know, you won't be able to necessarily see it, it'll kind of blend in. So now we have these individual pieces, it's easier to work with. If you will notice here, I'm holding my scissors kind of still and I am moving the paper around. This is very helpful if you have arthritis, if you have any type of dexterity problems. I feel like this one thing has helped me so much with my hands and my thumbs hurting. Alright, this is what it looks like with one side. Alright, now, this is how our little Santas are going to go on here after the paint's dry. I'm going to use my glue stick and just put this all over here. As I have said before, the purple, that color shows me where I've got the paint, so I know that I'm putting it, not the paint, the glue, so I know where I'm putting it, and make sure that every little piece of this sticks down, because what happens if you have floppy pieces? It can catch on something and tear, and it would destroy my ornament and crush my soul. So doing it this way ensures that I don't have a nervous breakdown. Okay, I'm going to put this on here and just kind of move it around in place using my fingers. I kind of hold it in the center to secure it and then move my fingers outward just to make sure that it's stuck down everywhere. Can also use a little squeegee or a credit card. This is my Mod Podge squeegee, and I'm just going to make sure after I've tapped it down with my fingers that I am making sure I'm dragging out any bubbles, any wrinkles. Isn't he precious? I love those. Santa's so cute. I love the Santas that have those vintage little faces. They look so cute, so baby-like. Alright, so we're going to use some of that tinsel we took off the boots. I'm going to cut it into strips long enough to wrap around the top of my ornament and twist it over on itself in the back so that I can glue it down. This is wired, of course, and it makes it easier for you to do this. You can use ribbon if you don't have tinsel, or you can use some string. Some red and white baker's twine would be cute too. And then using those little holly berry pieces, I'm going to add that back on. Those came off the boots too. Going to do the same thing with the other ornament. Secure it down after you've twisted it together, let it dry, flip it over, add the little holly. And here's our 2 little Santa ornaments. If you have enjoyed watching these creations come to life, I would love a thumbs up, because it tells me that I'm on the right track and I can give you more of what you need. be a butterfly ornament. So I've got some brushed gold paint and a brush here, and I have a little resin butterfly. I'm going to put some of that paint down and then kind of get it up into the bristles, but I don't want a lot on here. So this is almost going to be sort of like a dry brush technique, but you're going to put more paint on there than that. This is almost like you would be using a wax. When you use a wax, you know how it looks kind of, you want it to be down in the deeper areas and you want the higher pieces to be a little bit lighter colored. That's kind of the technique I was going for in this. I'm going to push down in all of those little cracks and crevices. I'm going to go around the edges too to get some good coverage on here. Now you can add as much as you like. You can do a little bit less, whichever way you like it. I'm going to take a paper towel and ball it up really, really well to make it soft and squishy. And I'm just going to gently wipe off the higher areas there. So you see how it's down in those cracks and it looks aged. Now my son decided to get in on the action here and to do a little helping. It's usually his sister who is helping me, but he is going to be my assistant for this video. So if you love what he's doing here, you could give him a thumbs up and I know he would appreciate it. And of course it helps my channel too. So he's doing the same thing I did. He's a little bit heavier handed than I was, but you'll see it makes a difference, and it's actually helpful here in case you decide you want to do more or less, whichever look you're going for. So now he's got the towel and he's wiping off all the extra, and you can see that my side's a little bit lighter than his, but both sides are perfectly okay. Now the body of the butterfly needs to be painted, so I'm going to do a little bit heavier, leave a little bit more on the body of the butterfly. Be sure that you go around all your sides. Now maybe you don't have one of these butterflies, then what do? Well, Dollar Tree has paper butterflies in green, in yellow, in orange, in hot pink. They have a variety. It doesn't have to be something that's plastic or resin. This is just what I had on hand, so this is what I wanted to use. Now this is it's a little paper Christmas ornament, but it's more of a cardboard type thickness. And I'm using some trim here just to go around the edge. Now this is the back side. Both sides of this little ornament are exactly the same, but I'm going to put this on the back side so that it will be trim when we flip it over for the front. I'm going to go along the curves and contours of this little ornament, and this is how it'll look on the front. I'm going to go all the way around except where her little legs and feet are. So it's going to go all the way around the edges of her dress and of her body, and then can be trimmed off. You could use tinsel or whatever you have for this, and you can use a cutout. So now this little angel will be right in the middle of the butterfly, almost like she has 2 layers of wings. Little hot glue will hold this angel down to the body of the butterfly. So actually I didn't have to paint it at all if I didn't want to. Could have saved my paint. Then I'm going to take a little bit of gold cord and go right on the back of the angel ornament so that we have a hanger. Now if you do have one of these little resin pieces, you can find, I find these all the time. Hummingbirds and swallows and ducks. I find them all the time at the Goodwill store. If you have one and you want to take the screw off where it attaches to the wall, you can go ahead and do that. Mine wasn't on hand, so I left it. This is how she is going to look. What else do you think you could use on the back of this ornament for the same kind of look? The next ornament is going to be a topper ornament. Now I named it a topper because this is a candle topper. I have a variety here, and if you don't have these, this little blossom sign from Dollar Tree is exactly the same size. I'm going to use this one. If you're going to use it and it's been on a candle, get all the wax off, clean it up really good, both sides. I have a little piece of, this is scrapbook paper actually, and it's in a little pad. You can get these at Michael's and Hobby Lobby. I think you could get them at Target too. Mine was thrifted I'm going to cut it out to the right size for the bigger diameter circle, because this is going to be a two-sided ornament. I love to use my glue stick for these kind of projects. It dries quickly, it grips quickly, it's just easy to work with. Then I'm going to take my squeegee after I push it down with my hands and just work from the inside outward. Then we're going to flip it over, and on the back side I'm going to brush some of that gold on there, and putting this gold over the dark wood is going to make it almost look like a bronzed color, and I really like the way it turned out when it was dry. I'm going to take some gold ribbon and go right around the edge. It's a little bit thicker than the thickness of that part of the candle topper, but you know, it'll work. And if you are using one of those Dollar Tree pieces, little springtime ornaments, which they're in the garden section if I didn't mention that, you don't have to worry about that. You can just go around the entire outside edge with this if you would like. Any type of trim you want. I think the gold is good for Victorian, so that's why I used it. And this is a gold that's very similar to the gold paint that I've been using for my Victorian decorations, so I think it works well. Now I'm going to use an emery board here. I got mine at Dollar Tree. You can use a sanding block or a piece of sandpaper or a finger sander, and just go ahead and shear off the edges so you get a nice clean finished look. And then it will just peel away. Now this I got thrifting. I think maybe it was a candy box. Maybe? What do you think this was? I'm thinking maybe it had candy in it. I'm going to cut out the figure of the little girl. I think she is so precious. And I will use her on this side of the ornament. She's holding her dolly. She's got little bare feet. She's so cute. And I'm just going to add her down on this side. And I'm going to add greenery because you know I always do. And I love this piece. There's just some scraps that I've had left from my Christmas and winter decor from a couple of years. I always save that stuff in a bag, and it works great on these smaller projects. I'll hold it down in the hot glue. Then I'm going to use a shorter one right here so that we have like a semicircle on this side. And then we can use little beads or push pins or whatever you have as little ornaments here. If you have little crystals or little rhinestones, you could use those if you wanted to. But I think these little pearl beads work great. And I know that you can get pearl beads at the Dollar Tree in Crafter Square. So I have a little gold looking ball ornament. It was in a pick, a floral pick, and I'm just going to cut one side off so that I can glue this flat, and it won't be quite as thick. I don't want anything to overwhelm the piece, so I'm just going to glue that in the middle, and then I decided to add maybe just a few more of those little pearls. Now we're going to flip it over on the back side. This was also in a paper pack. I'm going to trim off a couple of these tags. One of them has sheet music on it, and the other one just has some Christmas verbiage on it. I will cut those out to the right dimensions, cut all the white off. If you want to put a little staple or something or a little tack in here, which I originally thought maybe I would do, you can use a stick or a piece of wire and make a hole in the center so you can go through both of them. But I just decided to not do it that way. For one reason, the candle lid was very, very hard. So I couldn't push a thumbtack through it. So I decided to just glue it down like this instead and then make it look as though it is tacked down. I want to put a little bend in my papers for a little dimension and interest. And I think it looks cute there. And since we had ornaments, well, since I had ornaments left over that were kind of old looking and the same sort of gold look, I thought they would look really good on here with the sheet music. So I'm just going to add the little harps and the violin to the ornament, just on the side there. I could have gone completely nuts, and y'all know, I know I've been accused of going overboard and just doing way too much before, but I don't think it's too much on here. I think it's interesting and it's different. I like it. So now it needs a hanger. I'm going to take another piece of the gold ribbon that we used to frame it out on the edges, and I'm just going to loop it over and make a little knot right in the end, and that is going to be our hanger. I'm trying to slide that knot down as far as I can, leaving a little bit of slack so that I have something to glue to the trim. I'm making sure that this is exactly opposite of the front so that nothing's crooked when it's hanging up on either side. Adding it with some hot glue, and then I'll add a little more hot glue so that I can put a bow on this side. I did it upside down, but it won't be upside down. So this is how it's going to look on the front. And then if you flip it over, this is how it will look on the back. The next ornament is a spool ornament. I do have some vintage spools, but I do not know where I put them at this particular moment because I have all my Christmas crafting supplies out. So take a spool, some paper cutouts, some rhinestones, some ribbons, whatever you have, and something that looks like a little Christmas tree. You can use the little bottle brush Christmas trees if you want to. I'm going to take a little of this satin ribbon from Dollar Tree, just get my measurements on there, and then I'm going to hot glue the center of it. I've seen lots of these little ornament trees on Pinterest, so if you're curious, maybe you don't like the way I did mine, or you want more ideas, then you can go to Pinterest and look that up. You can find my Pinterest board in the description box in case you want to go over there and look. Lots of good ideas over there for you. So now we got that glued down, and I'm going to take some of this red and gold and go upside down right over the top. Same process here. We're going to add a little bit of glue, but I want to add the glue only where the red is on that ribbon so that it doesn't squish out and make a big mess. I'm going to trim it down, make it nice and neat, and so this will be the base of our little Christmas tree and ornament. So on these picks from Dollar Tree, the ends of them have they look like little trees. So I thought that'd be a great idea for a tree, and I've used it in other decorations for my other Victorian decorations as well. So you just got some versatility from those fern picks. I'm taking 2 little signs, a little pick left over from, I believe, some florals that I had. I'm going to first glue down the stick in here. I'll roll it over into the glue. Then I'm going to add some more glue and glue them together. Now the way I cut these out was exactly how they were on the paper, but I have to trim the wider one down. That's easy enough to do. Could have done it in the beginning, but you can always do it after you have it glued together. So I pressed it down so that it kind of locked it in, and that stick's not going anywhere. And this is how it looks on both sides. I'll trim that off on the back of the other one so that they are the same size. Got a little Victorian lady there. These little beads, or whatever this is, sticker beads, I think they came from Dollar Tree. I know you can get something similar at Michael's or Dollar Tree, so just watch your sales, get your best discounts where you can, save you a little money when you can. And then just decided to put this one on the top and the other one is on the bottom. It's just a matter of preference. If you don't like the way I do it, all you have to do is change it up. I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm here to give you ideas, and then you can make it your own. So far, this is how the spool is looking. I think it is very cute. I am going to add a chrysanthemum right on the top. And then I need to add a little something on the back, because if it rotates on the tree, which it may, we need to have it looking nice. So I'm going to make a little shepherd's hook here, which is also going to be the hanger. This is a copper looking piece of wire. I'm just going to bend over the top part of it. And then I'll take some table scatter from Dollar Tree, and I will add on some of these little styrofoam table scatter pieces. So I have a gold, a white, and a silver. And that's how it looks. Pretty simple. You can do it so many different ways. It will hang nicely from that little hook. The next ornament is going to be a card ornament. Recently on a live video with my friends Crafting Cousins and Annie from Indiana Jones Crafts, we had we made some ornaments, and so I wanted to duplicate sort of the ornament that I did so that you guys could see it and that you can make one of your own. So you can see the supplies so far that I've gathered together. I've got a card here. I'm just going to kind of press that center down and peel it apart. Now I have one. I'm going to use my glue stick, flip it over on top of my foam board, but you can use cardstock or something else if you want. It needs to be fairly thick though if you're going to put a trim or a border on it. You got to have something to glue to. I'm just going to place it down, press it down with my hands, and don't worry about that purple glue. It vanishes when it dries, so no worries about that. Doesn't make a mess at all. I'm going to press it down so it is nice and neat with no wrinkles, no bubbles, and so that it will look like we bought it this way. Now you're welcome to use scissors on cardstock, and it works pretty easy, but if you use something like this thick foam board, it's going to work better, in my opinion, if you use a utility knife. You got to be super careful. I don't use a wooden ruler here, I use only the metal. And keep your fingers out of the way as far as you can. I'm going to go around the edges, protecting my card until I get it all cut out, and now it is a solid piece, which allows us some room to add on some decorative trim. Now this trim is not a rope. Somebody told me that you don't use rope in Victorian decor, and this is not rope, this is a cord. So I'm going to use this green, red, and gold cord along the edges. I think it looks very rich and regal. And I'm going to use it all the way around to trim it out. It'll sit right down between the layers of paper, because right in between is like a styrofoam or something. And so it sits in there nicely. Once you get to the end, if you're using this type of cording, you can just twist it with your fingers to lock the layers together and press it down. That'll give you a nice little finish. Then, before we start the back side of this card, which is reversible, we're going to add some ribbon with some hot glue. Let it dry and cool. Then we're going to flip it back over and continue with the front side. I want to add some of these snowy picks. It's the same little snowy pick that we used for the other ornament. And I'm going to add it to the card because the cardinal here is sitting in a tree, in a pine tree with pine cones and lots of snow. So I thought it was appropriate. I'm also going to add some gold by clipping off pieces of that fern and putting it here and there. Can you see how making these ornaments can just really help you use up those scraps? I mean, I'm just picking apart pieces here and putting them together. Simple. It brings in the gold from the frame around the outside, and it looks great. So now you can take another piece of paper. I dropped my glue stick. I have no idea where it rolled, but it is gone. So I'm using some double stick tape. This will just give you an option of another way that you can do it if you don't have a glue stick, because not everybody keeps them on hand, but I have children in my house, so we always have them in hand. Then I'm going to press it down so that the adhesive from the tape is clinging on to that paper. And I think it looks nice. Looks sort of like a postcard. I have some more of these ornaments. These are gold, and I found these at the same time that I found the angels from my other Victorian video. I'm going to cut off the hangers and the little loops there on the top and decide where I want to put these cute little stockings. So these are going to be Santa's boogie shoes. Y'all remember that song? Yep. They're stockings, but these are Santa's boogie shoes. I'm going to put them on here, make them look like they're dancing or leaping in the air. Then I'll take some of this beautiful red trim. You see how easy it is to make that bow? So super simple. A little bit of red twine, and I'm going to put it around the middle because this red will kind of blend in. And you could leave it like this. You could leave the bow like this rather than having to cover up the center, unless you just want to, because I do end up covering the center of mine. Just FYI. I'm going to pull down the tails and pull up, kind of fluff up the ears or the loops of the bow. I know now where I want to put it, and I'm just going to trim off my sides so that they don't overhang the outside. Adding a little glue, put it in the corner, and it's just a little bit of overhang there, and that is totally okay. Then I'm going to take this little gold button looking thingy and just glue it down on top. Now we have a two-sided ornament, and this is very similar to the one that I made in the live video. So now we are going to do a frame ornament. Now this one is vellum, and it is just glued to the back of an empty frame. That's all you have to do to it. I'm going to cut out some ribbon that's 18 inches, but if you don't have this type of frame, you're going to just alter your ribbon to what you are using. All we're going to be doing is making a bow on the front. This is pretty simple. If you don't have little holes in your frame, then you can take a, you can just glue it right to the front. Instead of attaching it by the little area here, you can just make your bow and just glue it right on the front. But since there was a space for it, I decided I would leave it there. I want to take just a moment to thank everyone who is subscribed to this channel. Watching, liking, commenting, sharing, all of those good things help show YouTube that I'm doing good work here and that people are enjoying the work that I'm doing. So I appreciate it when you do those things. If you're new to the channel, welcome. It's budget friendly all the way on this channel, and I am happy that you stopped by. So now we're going to trim the tails up here, get those out of the way a little bit. I'm going to take an angel ornament. This is just one of those paper cardboard type ornaments here. I'm going to cut the hanger off and place her where I want her, and then put just a little bit of that hot glue there. For your information, I am using Gorilla Glue on my projects, and I have been for a while now. Trying to put like the tiniest amount so I don't make a mess on this frame, and because I can use this frame again if I'm careful with it. Look at here. I can just bend that ribbon in the other direction by just gently pulling it against the back of my scissors. That's a good little trick. It doesn't work with all ribbon, but it did work on this one. So you can see through the back of the vellum, so when you put it next to the Christmas tree, you'll see the lights through it. We're going to make a hanger, and the way I did mine was just to feed it through where the bow was, then double it back on itself with just a tiny bit. I'm just barely smearing any glue on there so I don't burn myself. Then I'm going to twist it back under there, and then I'll add a little bit of glue to hold it in place. This is not heavy, by the way. This is not a heavy frame at all. I wanted to add just a little bit something else up here, but if I would have had the right type of a stone, I probably would have put some fake jewels or something there. But I think this is precious. She'd also look good if this was on a stand in front of a candle, I think.
Santa's truck. This is a little sign we're going to make. So we're going to use these window clings, and I got these from Walmart for 98 cents. So I thought that was a really good buy, and they are from this year. So hopefully you can find some of these. I'm going to use some of this tinsel garland that was left over from something else. I'm going to use 2 of these wooden ornaments and a sign from Dollar Tree, which is pretty on its own, but it's the perfect size for what I want to do. I'm going to use Mod Podge and some Martha Stewart paint in Sandcastle, some paintbrushes, and you know I always add other stuff. So we're going to take the tag off, we're going to take the hanger off, and then I'm just using a very thin spatula to go around underneath the edge of the border, and I'm going to get also underneath the paper and just kind of start to pop these off. I don't want to break them, and they're not real wood, they're just MDF. So I don't even know that I could repair them if I broke them. So after the edges come off, the paper peeled off pretty good. I think it came off pretty good. Sometimes it's a challenge, but this time it was fine. So that's going to be the front now. That's going to be the back of it's going to be the front. There we go. So I'm going to take some of that paint and one of my favorite brushes, and I'm going to go all over this board. One coat, and I'm not going to make a solid coat. I want this to look like it has a little age, like streaky paint, and that looks good. I chose this color paint because it happens to be the same color as the background on the cleans. So now I'm taking some of this paint, this Waverly, and it's like a glitter paint. It's supposed to be, but I honestly couldn't see the glitter. And I did shake the bottle up, so I don't know if it has more to do with technique. I just finally started adding like a bigger amount and just not smearing it out so far. Kind of leaving it kind of chunky and thick and just working in small sections at a time. And then after 2 coats, this is how it looks. And it does not give me the look that I want, so I'm going to fix it with glitter in a bit. Here's my daughter's little nutcracker that she made. All of it by herself with no help from me. She always likes to share her goodies with y'all. Okay, so now we're moving on, and I have chosen this one, Santa in his truck with the little reindeer in there. And you can see that the background on that clay matches perfectly to the paint that I put down. If you don't have the paint though, you can get your scissors and just trim along and cut that extra off, because it will show up if you put it on white. Now I'm going to use my glue stick, and I'm going to put it down on here, making sure that I leave enough room on all the sides to get the border back down without cutting my picture off. And I'm just going to use the Mod Podge squeegee and go over this window clean. I love the pictures. They're so vintage looking to me. Okay, so now all of those are dry. I'm going to take some Mod Podge. I'm going to add on all of these little pieces of border trim, and the holes where the hanger was, I just filled it up with that paint. And it dried without leaving a big mess in there. And so I'm put this on top of it so that I can add my glitter to it. But you can use school glue if you would like. Got to put it on kind of thick to get the glitter to stick to it, just in my experience. Now I always start off by sprinkling a tiny amount and then adding more if I need to add more. I try to conserve my product. Helps save money when you do that. Also, by doing it on a napkin, you can just take that napkin and pour it in another container, and then you'll have some red and green glitter. Once it's dry, you can start putting your pieces back down. And I did kind of give them a dry fit to make sure that they were going back in the right places. I'm going to glue it down and hold it, because sometimes when you paint that MDF stuff, it kind of bows a little bit. So I'm just going to hold it in place for a minute. I did all the edges, and now I'm going to move on to this pretty glittery Merry Christmas piece. And I'm just cutting the hanger little loops off because we don't need that. And I think I like it like this. Now I've got this glittery poinsettia. I'm going to cut the little stem part off so that I can get a flat surface, but I'm going to add glue down in that hole and around it so that it doesn't slip and fall apart. They're made in layers, in other words, and the layers will come apart if you're not careful. I'm going to take the same Mod Podge and then go around my Christmas tree, because I had so much fun with the glitter on the border that I decided I'm going to add some to the sign. You certainly don't have to do this if you don't want to. If you don't like the glittery and the busy and all that, you don't have to do it that way. You could certainly just have left it like it was. But this is all about vintage inspired, so I'm going to show you my interpretation of what that looks like. So I'm going to shake this can on here with the green. Then I decided I didn't have enough of an opening there, so now I'm shaking it down. Got a really thick look now. I tap it around, bop it around on the corners to make sure that paint sticks. Turn it upside down over a trash can or a bowl, depending. And then it will look like this. I'm going to go over the wreath that's on the front of the truck with the same green. Put it on pretty thickly so that my glitter will stick down. Same process, and I'm shaking the heck out of it. Shake it off, and then that's the coverage you're going to get. If you want a lighter coverage, then just put it on thinner. You know, you don't have to put the glue on as thick.
for the Mod Podge. I want to do a little bit of red on Santa's hat, so I just put a little Mod Podge on there. And you could always put a little pom-pom for the ball if you wanted to. You could do a little pom-pom on the reindeer if you wanted to make him Rudolph instead. You can take a dry brush and kind of push the pieces of glitter around. You can brush them off or you can push them back into the glue, whichever way you want to do it. And when you get it cleaned up, it'll look like this. And then you can get like a stiff stenciling brush, and that also works really well to pick those little pieces up. The hairs are so compact, they just kind of get caught in there. If you're worried about the glitter when you're finished with it, you can always spray it with some Mod Podge or clear sealer. Okay, so now I know that I want to put my flower in the corner, but I want to leave a little gap so you can see the bird in the top of the tree. He's peeking out of there. And then for this, I was thinking, how am I going to do this without getting glue all over the place? So all I'm doing here is just quickly adding little dots of glue, just lifting up a tad to add the glue here and there where it will be stable enough, but you don't see glue squishing out all over the place. You know, gonna keep it looking neat. And then there's a lot of space on that C to connect it down to the side. So here is my silver glitter, and I decided to go ahead and put some of that silver on the bumper of the truck and then on the lights. There's a little sign area there. I left that one open. Didn't put any on that. And remember, the more glue you put on, the thicker it's going to be. This did not have a sprinkle top on it, so I was really dumping a lot of it out. But don't worry, I saved my product, dumped it into a bowl. I can use it again. This is how it will look. And you see the truck already has little snowflakes on it. It was made that way. I think that looks cute like that. So I've decided that I really need to continue that silver along the running board of the truck. So I'm going to put it right here. It's the little step part. And then I put a little bit on the back bumper that is extending out back there. Right there. Okay. And then this is how it will look. Now, I don't want to have this as a hanging sign. I want it to stand, so I'm just going to take some building blocks. Now, these are bigger than the ones that came from Dollar Tree, but you can certainly use the ones from Dollar Tree, but you would probably want to do 2 of them side by side so you have enough of a flat surface to balance this sign. It's not heavy, but it potentially could be top heavy depending on what you put up there on the top of your sign. So you want this to be stable. And this certainly is stable. Now I am going to make 2 different kinds of bows. So this is a shoestring bow, just as like when you tie your shoelaces. So I'm just going to pull those little ears or the loops of the bow, cut the tails down, and I think this will be cute right there on the front of the wreath. Gives some more dimension and interest. I think it's cute. All of this vintage inspired stuff is just playful, and I love it, and I have so much fun doing it. So let's continue and let's make another bow. We're going to make this one for the reindeer. So this is like the awareness sign. Then you're going to squish the loop right into the tails using a little bit of my red cording here. I'm going to hold this down and tie a double knot in here to hold this tightly in place, and it needs to go right in the center so that the loops end up being the same size. I'm going to cut off the excess because we don't need that. Trim the little tails down, and here's your little precious bow. That one's tiny. We're going to put it right there on the reindeer's neck. How festive is that? I think it's cute. I know some people are going to tell me it's too busy and not very realistic, but you know, it doesn't have to be. It's magical, and it's all about fun and imagination and childhood goodness and innocence, right? Yeah, it's those feelings that take us back. We like that. I think all of us pretty much like that.
So the next is going to be an ornament duo. I'm going to take these two ornaments that I showed you in the beginning, going to take that same paint and give both of these one coat of that sandcastle paint. You could leave these plain if you wanted. You could paint them a different color. Same thing as the background on the other one. But I like that this is going to make those edges just disappear whenever you put your cling on it. They need to dry, and when they do, look how perfectly these clings fit onto these ornaments. I really adore these. And I love making ornaments. They're so fun. Alright, I'm going to use that same glue stick and color that in. And although it's purple, it does vanish when it dries, so put as much on there as you need to. If you need to go all the way to your edges, you can certainly do that. And when it dries, nobody will know. I'm using that squeegee again, getting all my bubbles and lines out because I want this to almost appear as though it was made this way. If it was an ornament that was made to look this way, rather than being thrown together or handcrafted. From the middle to the outside to make sure our bubbles can escape. Then I'm going to take some of this shimmering silver, and this is going to be what I use for the top of the ornament. This is a little part where you hang your ornament. You can use gray if you want to use gray here, or you don't have to paint it at all, but I knew I was going to use silver glitter on the top, so I didn't want it to, you know, anything to show through and look cheap. I wanted it to be nice and richly colored. So now I'm just going to use a little brush from Dollar Tree, and I'm kind of stippling it on, just kind of pouncing it up and down. And I'm going to do it on both of them, all the way to the little edge of the line there. Try to keep my lines kind of straight there because that's where our glitter is going to cling. And I'm going to tap some of this off. I really need to put this in a salt and pepper shaker or something because I am making a teetotal mess. So I'll just transfer a little bit over onto the other ornament, tap it off, use my finger to push it up and press it down, and just using my fingernail to clean the edge up a bit. And I think it looks good. What do you think? Alright, so now I am going to add some snow. I'm using my Mod Podge in the same process, just kind of pouncing that up and down. Now, I still have some of that very fine powdery snow, but I chose not to use it this time because I wanted to use something more like what you can get at Dollar Tree so that you can see what it would look like using the Dollar Tree snow. This is like plasticky types of flakes. Not my favorite to work with, I can tell you that. I'm actually putting clumps of it and pressing it into the Mod Podge to make it stick. And I think that, you know, it does stick down pretty well. I don't know, I would say you might want to do more than one layer of it, but probably by trying to brush anything on, you would be making an even bigger mess. So maybe not. Maybe just leave it like this. But I just use a dry brush to clean off, you know, the center of the picture. We're going to do the same thing with Frosty. Go all the way around your edges, and this also seals your cling onto that board. Now I'm going to be patting this down. Same process as before. I'm using the remnants from where I did the other ornament and just pressing those down. And this is how it looks. Now we're going to make hangers. So I'm going to take that tinsel, and this came off the Santa boots. If y'all haven't seen my video where I made the Santa boots, this is what I took off, and this is why I save everything. I think this makes the best little hanger. I'm going to just twist it on the bottom and then push the twisted section up and over. So now that loop is kind of locked in place and nothing is going to slip out. And we'll do the same thing again with the red. I'm going to hold it at the bottom, twist those pieces around, push it up and down, and it's going to kind of lock that into place. It's also going to leave you a thicker section to put your hanger down in the glue. So take that little knotted section of it and press it down in there. And do the same thing with the reindeer ornament. And press that one in place. Protect your fingers now if there's any question. You can use pipe cleaners here too if you need to, or you could use some type of cording. This cording I got from Goodwill. But you can find pretty much anything anywhere. What you're looking for is something that is going to be the same or a little bit smaller than the width of the ornament that you're using, because the idea is to have it sit there on the edge. So what could you use here? You could use jute, you could use baker's twine, you could use more tinsel on the edge if you wanted to. You could paint the edge a different color if you wanted to. However you want to do it is going to be absolutely fine. You could even use yarn here if you wanted. We're going to go all the way around, and I'm just putting it as close to that edge where the snow is as possible. Working around the corners, I'm going to just hold it in place a little longer. You can always pull off any extra glue that kind of makes a mess there. So you got to kind of work with these corners. Let a section dry and then move to the next section. Let it dry and then press the cord down and let it dry. And then once you get all the way to the top and every bit of it is covered, you can take that cord and just cut it off. Just cut it as close as you can, and if you need to add a little glue, just go ahead and add it. And there are those two little cute ornaments. The next one is Santa sign. So we have two signs here, and here we are with this paint again, the sandcastle. We're going to use some more of this tinsel. This little fall sign from Dollar Tree, and I'm using this one because of the green. And then this is a vintage hanky. And an embroidery hoop or a blanket hoop or whatever you want to call it. It is a 10-inch hoop. It's thick. I got this from the thrift store, but you can pretty much get them wherever you buy craft supplies. I'm going to add this down in the middle, and the goal here is to get the paint on the inside of the ring and on one outer edge. Because this is going to be on the inside, you don't have to paint the outside, you'll never see it. I'm going to add this hanky right down. Well, it's a hanky or a napkin, probably a napkin. And I'm going to press it down so you can't see the outside at all. What you can see is the painted inside and the edge. I'm going to screw it down so it's tight, and then I'm going to go around and try to cut off just a little bit of the extra, because it helps me to be able to work with the fabric if I don't have so much to move around. I'm going to put little slits around the block where it attaches, and then glue that section down. Then flip it back over and begin to glue it to the frame. So you can see here that I'm just going to put some glue here and work in small sections, and then just pull and press that down. Protect your fingers. My glue, for whatever reason, is not really hot right now. I can't feel it, probably because it's freezing cold. So I'm just going to continue around here, pressing, pulling, pressing, almost making little darts or little tucks in here so that we have a nice uniform, clean looking edge. Continue around all the way until you get back to your starting spot. And then when the glue is cool, you can take your scissors, lay them sideways, and begin to trim off any excess so that you can neaten up the back. I'm just going to grab that brush. It still had some paint on it. I'm going to go over the edge here and on the back. But this step you could really skip because you can't see it with what I'm going to do. Just an option. Now I'm going to use the tinsel on the inside, so I'm starting in the bottom center, and I'm going to put the glue on the frame itself. I'm not aiming to put it on the fabric. I don't want a bunch of mess showing through. I don't want you to be able to see a lot of glue on the back side. So I'm just going to tap it down. And continue around doing the same thing. I'm aiming toward the frame part rather than the fabric. But it doesn't matter if some gets on there, but you know, it's going to stick better if you're sticking it to the wood, I think. Continue along until you have this completely all the way around there. What else could you use? You could use rope, you could use yarn here, you could use a different colored tinsel here, you could use fabric. If you don't have what I have, you can use a fabric from the Dollar Tree. Alright, so I'm going to go over to this little ornament that I chose to use because it looks vintagey. Cut the hook off, pull off the old bow. We're going to richen it up a little bit. So I'm going to take a little strip of this beautiful ribbon. I'm going to glue to the front. I'm going to measure how far down I want it to be. Cut the excess off. These are the little things that come on the inside of those little rectangular signs. I always keep stuff, so I had them left, and they happen to be the perfect width, I guess you could say, or fullness, or they're the perfect size. Yeah, that's what they are. To once you put it in there, it's equal to the depth of the frame. I'm sure that made no sense at all, but thought I would share it with you. This is how my brain works. Okay, so I just measured to make sure I was in the center based on the bottom where it is attached. I've glued it on the back side. Now it looks like it's hanging, right? That's the idea. Going on to the third bow I'm showing you in this video, I'm just looping this over on itself again and again until I have 3 loops on the left and 3 loops on the right. Taking another piece of that red rope or twine, I'm going to tie it in the middle. The first time if you tie it, you can move that knot back and forth until you get it where you need it to be. And then you lock it in with that second knot. Tied really tight. You can kind of fluff out your bow a little bit, see what that's going to look like. I pulled the tail out and I'm pulling out the 3 loops on each side. You know, if you didn't want to make a bow, you could always use Christmas bows that, you know, that you use to decorate your boxes and packages. You could use that. So right on the stem of that ornament, I'm going to add the bow. By the way, I have no idea where this ornament came from because it was thrifted. But I know you can find really cute stuff at Dollar Tree that would probably work great, and Dollar General and Family Dollar. Let's not forget those other dollar stores that are really good. We don't have only a buck around here, so I can't speak to that. Alright, I'm adding some glue. I'm going to pull this down as it would be when it is hanging, when it is standing up. I'm going to press it down. It will go through the fabric. Be careful that you don't glue it to your table. I lifted it as soon as I did it. And then I'm just going to add a tiny bit more glue on the back side to help stabilize it. We're going to use the inside of the box to set this down. So 6 inches is going to be my center. I'm going to add my glue down. I put a little mark on the box right in the center, so that I can get that little gap in the frame even with it. And now it should have the same amount on each side. You see the sign is going to stand in there. I'm going to cut some floral foam so that I can elevate the box. I need this to be as high as the sides of the box because we're going to cover it with snow, so it's almost going to be like a little platform. I'm just measuring down, then I'm going to cut the strip. I'm going to flip it over and cut it into strips. I don't want to see my ink. I'm just testing to see how much I'm going to need here. Then I'll start adding my glue. I know it's a little blurry, but I think you kind of get the idea of what's going on. I'm going to press it down in the glue and then on the sides also. Then I'm going to roll up little pieces and tuck those in the front and the back so that there's no gap between that and the sign that we have it sitting on, and then you can just glue it down where you need it. Now we have a little snowy place under there. Taking some of these little trees, bottle brush trees, and some of these little tiny pom-poms. I'll take the bottoms off, and sometimes they'll screw off, sometimes you have to cut them off. Depends on where you get your little mini trees from. These little pom-poms fit in here with no glue, and they fit snugly in there, so go for it. If you want to use something else, you'll probably have to use hot glue, and you'll need to use your cool temp because you can melt the little stems on these little brush trees.
I'm going to fix these little tails so that they're not fly away and they don't stick down in Santa's face. Give that little bow another little fluff. Then I'm going to take, these little trees are one's a little bit bigger than the other one. I'm going to place them down where I think I want them. And then I decide, you know what, I want to add a little bit more. So I'm moving the white trees over and I'm going to add some of these beautiful green trees. Same process, we took the bottoms off and I love how that kind of frames out all of that white. I've got some little beads from the thrift store. It's like a little, I don't know if it's a star shape, what you would call it. And I put a white little pom-pom in the center of each one. And these are going to be the stars for our Christmas tree. Or the flowers, they kind of look like a little poinsettia, don't they? These little plastic miniature ornaments are also vintage. They came from the thrift store as well, with a bunch of other little ornaments that you will see me use in the Victorian video coming up. So I've added green to one side and a red to the other side. And now I have some of these old ornaments. I'm going to choose some. This one's a cute little drum. They're wooden. I'm going to add these down here and there. So now we have like little vignettes on each side. Here's a bell. So we have a drum and a bell. And I like this little mouse and the penguin. So we're going to add those in there too. One on each side. And he's holding little symbols. Isn't that cute? So you could stop here if you wanted to, but I wanted to add something to cover up my little messy edge there. So I grabbed that red tinsel and I'm just going around right along the edge of that, what is now our base, to just make a nice clean line there. I'm going to trim it off and then glue it down. And this is how this one is going to look. There's so many ornaments in that bag. I have so many cute little things that I found. Thanks for stopping by, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.